We thank you for joining us. I'm excited to have Tracy Gray here today, and we're going to talk about, to me, what's the number one most important topic in the racial justice movement, and that's funding Black entrepreneurs. We've heard a lot about, after the George Floyd murder, we've heard a lot of how do we help the Black community, and I'm of the belief that the way you do that is through wealth creation. And we all know that entrepreneurship and building Black businesses is the path to wealth creation in our communities. But the problem is there's a lack of funding. And Tracy, I know you know this, I know this, you're just knocking on doors, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of people who are writing checks. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get more access to people like you who are actually doing the work of funding the next great Black company. So with that, I'm gonna jump into questions. I just wanna know a little bit about your background and how you got into raising a fund.
Yeah, well, I started my professional career on the Space Shuttle program. I was an engineer on the Space Shuttle program. So I always say when people try to make funding Black people difficult, I always say it's not rocket science, because I was one. So we know it's not that difficult to do. It's not perplexing. And I was in technology, and I love technology, and because I love new things, I get bored pretty easily. But throughout my life in technology, I've always been the only, and then either the only woman or the only Black person. And when I got into venture capital by accident, I did a little stopover in the music industry, and one of the people I worked for became a venture capitalist, and here in Los Angeles. And I was like, what are you doing? I had never heard of it. This was in the 1999, and I had never heard of venture capital. And I don't know how well, now it's not surprising, but I was in tech, but just didn't know about venture capital. I didn't know if there was not a lot happening in Los Angeles. And then I was outside those networks, those insular networks of pretty much white men who knew what that was. And I was like, what are you doing? I don't understand. These don't seem like companies, they seem like products. And I was just criticizing his investments without having the knowledge or the lingo. And then he said, well, why don't you come in and be our analyst and stop criticizing us from afar? And I was like, oh, okay. I like new things. So I went in there and I loved it. I loved working with new companies, figuring out their strategy, looking at their finance, all the things we do as venture capitalists and private equity. But what I didn't love is I was the only, yet again, I was the only woman investment professional. There was one Black guy who was one of the partners, but all the women were the girls who were the office administrators, and the office manager and my assistant. And and they wanted me to raise another fund with them, their third fund, because I had access to economic development money and politicians through my ex-husband. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna once again bring public dollars to private side that are not, there's no equality there. I don't want my tax dollars to keep funding the same old white guys and the young white guys. So I was like, I'm gonna start my own fund, which no one can do as an analyst, right? I'm gonna start my own fund, but I didn't know that. And I'm glad I didn't know that, because not knowing, I didn't stop me. But what did stop me for a while was, as a lot of women, especially Black women, we think we have to get all these, we have to be validated by all these external things and get credibility. So I had to understand, I really wanted to know the nexus of private capital and economic development. That's what I wanted to do, and how entrepreneurship can help communities. But I didn't know anything about economic development, so I felt like I had to go to an economic development nonprofit. Not a nonprofit gal. That was frustrating. They were doing great work. They still are, but not my jam. And then I thought, I need to have an MBA. So not only one MBA, I had to get two from two top 10 schools. It was a joint program. So I got my MBA, came out and was ready to launch my fund. And then we got our anchor, and it was going to be what everybody's doing now, straight up investing in early stage tech of women and people of color. This is in 2008, and people would ask me, are there women and people of color in tech? And I was like, do you not see me? I'm a woman, I'm Black, and I'm an engineer. I think I am a woman, a person of color in tech. And they literally didn't think we existed at that point. And, but I did get an anchor investor. And then a month later, the world fell apart. And it was our last great recession. But I always wanted to come back. And my goal was to do another fund. And when I worked for the mayor of Los Angeles, and when I came out through my work there, working with manufacturing and exporting, I saw this new blue ocean way to invest. I like to do things differently. And I wanted to create this firm, because our firm, we invest in manufacturing to increase the export capacity of companies. And this is companies that export are more successful, they're more resilient, they create jobs faster. And when you couple them with manufacturing, the wages are much higher. The wages are about $94,000 a year on average, and more likely to have health care. So not only are they good jobs, they're the jobs of the future, they're clean jobs, and then it helps build wealth, which is our ultimate goal, is to build wealth for women and people of color.